What's up, guys? Jeffrey Stuckey here. I am strictly just a lyricist. I promised you that I would show you my process to writing. So this is what this video is about. No beat right now, because that's not how it works for me. I'm sure some rappers hear the beat first, but for me it's the lyrics first. And then I add the music to that. And then I build off based on how the music sounds. I take out lyrics or I put in lyrics, right? So I've got my tools here to begin my process. I've got my computer on Google Docs and a blank page. I've got a black fine point pen with a cap on the back. I got a songbook that I just bought. So this is a new songbook, and you can't really read it, but it says "Make Today Great." It's always good to have a positive attitude, even when you're writing something negative. I think it's more of an actor's job to put themselves in a negative zone so they can portray a negative thing. But that's what I think actors do. To me, at the same time you get put into the negative state, it can go back and forth. Most artists are bipolar. A lot of them probably don't take medicine for it, so they don't recognize that when you leave a negative song and you're immediately positive, that it's your bipolar disorder in effect. So with that being said, when I write and then I stop writing, it's the same thing, that I'm portraying emotion in the beginning while feeling this because of how the day went, and I'm writing about something from the past that I moved on from, but I do want to talk about just to get off my chest. And then I finish up, and that emotion is conveyed. I feel that emotion subconsciously or consciously, and then while I'm feeling that, I'm listening to it and feeling the beauty that I did and of making the song. And then I leave and I'm hyped up, and it's like I wrote something negative, but I'm happy that I did something negative. You see how it sort of does that thing? That's what bipolar disorder can do to your thoughts based on your emotions. So I think we're gonna, that's what we're gonna write about today. We're gonna write about that right there. So we're gonna get out this right here, a little small notebook, and we're gonna write down the topic. So put a little bullet point, and then we'll write down topic. All right, and the topic is, we'll put the acronyms first, so we can make it a shorter process. BPD. All right, BPD is bipolar disorder, so that's the topic, is BPD right there. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop showing you, because you can't really read it the right way. So the topic is BPD. That's the place we got. We can leave out setting, because this isn't a place this isn't something like an environment really. It's more, you can consider your emotions an environment. And you can't change the environment around you. You can change the people around you, but you can't change the environment. You can move stuff around, but you can't really change it. It's trees are there. The air's, at the end of the day, the air is still moving. We're still breathing air. That's just how it is. But so bipolar disorder. And now we're gonna say, instead of saying emotion, and the emotion is sad or the emotion is anger, we're gonna put the journey to finding this topic, right? So we're gonna put a little bullet point, the journey to finding this topic. All right, and then under that, I am going to put a dash, and then this is gonna be like just quick, sort of like Spark Notes. I'm gonna do 5 of them, just one word. So it's gonna be how I got the BPD. So let's see, how did I get there? So trauma. I went through trauma. I went through trauma. I got bullied and befriended my bullies. I know I said one word, but I just one, it's fine. I got bullied. My mother was a drug addict. My birth mother was or is a druggie, which is a drug addict. Okay, now before we go any further, I want to explain how this relates to bipolar disorder. First, on the bullet point, the journey to finding this topic. First dash. I went through trauma. When you go through trauma, like really heavy trauma, or any kind of trauma, it can make your brain feel lose control, lose touch of how it sees judgment, making the right choices. And for me personally, how I came across bipolar disorder was just simply trauma, right? It was trauma. And I don't want to go into that right now, because that's more about writing it down and showing and that letting the art speak for itself, right? I got bullied. I'm gonna let that speak for itself in the song. My mother was or still is a drug addict, so that's 3. 4. I'm always all over the place. I'm sometimes all over the place. Okay, and then the last one is other people and gaslighting and like gaslighting, a little iffy about that, but gaslighting we use gaslighting because that can result in someone having BPD all of a sudden, So now we got that. Let's do the plot. All right. So the plot in the first verse, we'll do these one words. So trauma. So we'll do secretive trauma. That's the first verse plot. I'm going to talk about secretive trauma. Talk about trauma that's secretive. All right. And the plot for the second verse. So we go from secretive trauma to finding out we have this condition, and there's just sometimes there's just things you can't control. So plot 2, second verse, losing control. Losing control even though it was something I couldn't control. And then we're going to do 3. Okay, so we got second verse, losing control even though it was something I couldn't control. Now, that goes plain and simple, right? When you lose control of something you can't control, it just makes you feel worse than you already did because you can't control it, right? You want to control what you can't control because maybe you can make it better if it was something negative, right? Which is what BPD is, negative. But there is some good there, but you can try to make it positive, right? So let's leave that as it is. Let's end on how my life turned out, right? Where it is now. So I lost control. So I went through some trauma, and then I realized I went through trauma. So we'll do realization of trauma. And then for the chorus, we'll talk about transitioning from only trauma to having time to process. Okay, and then into the third, which only gonna be 3 verses. Third verse plot. So, and then this is how we overcame. I'm sorry. I don't, the reason I say we instead of I is because of one of my problems from my past. So it's a lot deeper than it seems. But a lot of people don't need to hear that right now. So how I saying it's just a habit. How I overcame the roughness of what I've been through, which is the trauma. So how I overcame the trauma, how I accepted bipolar disorder, and then right now we're still processing BPD, which is what the chorus is. So we're gonna end on the third verse because I think that's much better. It ends on a positive note. Okay. So we got that out. I'm gonna switch from my book to Google Docs. Alright, so let's get started on the writing process. So up top, we gotta let ourselves know that what the topic is. So we're just gonna put in parentheses so we remember them. We can just look up easily. Alright, so we got the topic. Now we're gonna go ahead and figure out some words to write down. The first page, I'm just gonna mark it out so you don't see something confusing. This first page, this blank page, we're gonna write down just some words to go off of, that lead and guide the first verse in a certain direction. So first verse. Word. That represents. Okay, now I wrote the first verse. I wrote first verse, a word that represents BPD. Or words. Okay, so BPD, bipolar disorder. our self-control. See, I say we a lot. Also, I like saying we a lot because it makes me feel like I'm connected to people who are like me, even though we're not around. There's nobody around me. So first verse, a word that represents BPD. Now we transition from negative and positive a lot, and we even when we do that, we overanalyze what that means, and then we feel bad about it. So we'll do negativity. Okay. We'll do trauma. I spelled trauma wrong. Trauma. Now I would write anxiety, but to me, that's a whole different topic, right? Because anxiety and BPD do go hand in hand, but at the same time, like when I say hand to hand, like if you have bipolar disorder, it seems like you would have anxiety. If you have anxiety, it seems like you would have bipolar disorder. But to me, anxiety is like a whole different song. So I'm not going to write anxiety. I'm going to write negativity and trauma. Now I'm going to try to make those, I want to build off those two words. So I'm going to make a second column here. And I'm going to see how I can make these words have a little more flair, pizzazz, right? So negativity. So let's start off with something like two words put together that can really draw you in. So we'll do negative. So something, what will go good with the word negative and sound negative and make you feel negative? Negative should do that by itself, and it does, because the word negative represents negativity. So negative attitude, maybe outlet, output, we're giving off a negative aura, negative trauma. It's always good to just name things and go through the whole list, even if it sounds stupid, because you might actually hear something really good. Negative emotions. That's a good one. I'm actually going to go with that one, because that drives. I think the first couple words really tell you where this song is going to go. And if I start off with negative emotions, you can already tell that this song is something you might not want to listen to if you're positive. If you're like in a positive mood, because it's like a negative thing. You want to listen to it when you're negative so you can relate to it and feel like you're not alone. So we'll do negative emotions. And how did I get these negative emotions? What are these negative emotions? What kind of negative emotions? Many questions are going to come after, subconsciously, are going to come after I say negative emotions. Because whoever is negative in any way is going to relate to those words. Because negative people love emotions, at least how they love them. And, and then negativity is just what it is. So negative emotions, right? Now, let's see. I think now we can just sort of go freehand a little bit and see where our mind takes us. So negative emotions cradle me above the fire. All right, so we're gonna go into the next and talk about our family. Due to our trauma, I'm adopted, so all the trauma that I went through, going from house to house, drug addict fathers and mothers, boyfriends of my mother, and stuff like that, just ended up negative for me. Okay, so negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My mother. Now, this is the question: how are we gonna portray this? Right? Are we gonna say mom? You know what? Are we gonna be formal and say birth mother? Because you don't get the mom anymore because you're not my mom. You're barely even my mother, but I do understand you. or what you did, because I did the same thing. I didn't give my son up or kid up for drugs, but I did give up a part of me for drugs. That's why I stopped. So we'll do my birth mother, a druggie, who's a birthday. My birth mother, a drug addict, when sober was a liar about it. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict and a liar. Those are the two things she is. Love me. She may have said she loved me, but she didn't even mean it. So, negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict and a liar. Now, we can either play with that and add some of the words, some negative emotions cradle me above the fire, one of those words in that sentence, and build off that. So we can either use negative. I usually do go back to the first line and bring it in on the next line. You can do emotions, but I think too much time has passed. So let's really begin. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. Why? My birth mother, a drug addict, and a liar. And a liar don't believe. And the liar. I'm thinking about believing, right? I just don't know what I'm going to say before that. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict, and a liar. I don't know if I'm going to use that, you know? No, I won't use it. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict, and a liar. Believing. Me believing. Believing is just speaking to me. It doesn't really rhyme with anything here, but it's just speaking to me. So, a drug addict and a liar, they weren't believers of Jesus. The only thing they believed in was drugs. Negative emotions cradle me but the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict and a liar, never could hold it, and a liar. She could never hold a job. She always got fired. Okay, so here's what we got so far. Me and you. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict and a liar, she could never hold a job. She always got fired. So let's see take another rhyme. Let's see what we can find here. We went fired, liar, fire. Let's do mother. Out of all my brothers, I'm the worst. I'm the worst out of all my brothers. Because of my mom, because of my birth mother, I have disorders. I have disorders. So here's what I got. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict and a liar. She could never hold a job. She always got fired. I'm the worst out of all my brothers. Because of my birth mother, I have disorders. One of them is BPD, is bipolar disorder. I need to refer. Yeah, so right now we're working on the trauma, bipolar disorder. And here's what we got. Since we skipped ahead, we can go to the next line, which is I got bullied. But let me read it first. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict and a liar. She could never hold a job. She always got fired. I'm the worst out of all my brothers. Because of my birth mother, I have disorders. One of them is bipolar disorder. Okay? I've had this now. I found this out at 16. Found at 16. Took medicine. And became an addict instantly. And became an addict instantly. I befriended mistakes. I befriended people's intentional mistakes. I befriended people's intentional mistakes. I loved the people who hate. When you love the people who hate you, you find out that they discriminate. Okay, so I already went through trauma, got bullied, and what came with that was a druggie, or you can say my birth mother was or is a druggie. I wrote that down. What came with it was I went through trauma, and part of my trauma was that in getting bullied, which I portrayed in this song. You find out they discriminate. And I want to make it more clear. Why did I get bullied? For being okay. I'm sometimes all over the place. Being okay. I became like you. I became an addict. And I stopped being all over the place. And an addict. Around the time I was all over the place. What are my percentages at? I hope my percentage is not low. Other people gaslighting. I became an addict around the time I was all over the place. Now that I'm in recovery, which is where you share your secrets, it doesn't sound allowed to go outside that room. Now that I'm in recovery, I'm chasing my dream. Chasing my dream. People want me to cut me. They gaslight. They're gaslighting. They're gaslighting my sensitivity. And then second verse. Losing control when though it was something I couldn't control. Actually, that's the tough one because, we'll take out that and we'll put the chorus in next. We'll just let the song vibe. Transitioning from only trauma to having time to process. So, I had no chance for normalcy. That's important to me. That's important to me. It's time for a change. Time for a change. Time to change. Away from BPD. Change away from BPD. I'm someone new thanks to Christianity. Okay, thanks to Christianity, I came, I saw, I conquered. Any other problem that rises, I'll talk to doctors. Because they will help me. Because they help me go somewhere, to see things and conquer. Because they helped me. They helped me conquer my flaws. Day by day, I worry less about those kind of flaws. BPD being a flaw. BPD being a flaw. I came, I saw, I conquered. Thanks to the doctors. Listen and be patient. The medicine helps when feeling bonkers. Alright guys, there's going to be a surprise ending, so I got to end it because I think my phone's about to die, but I finished it. Here's a quick run to show you how to write the lyrics. There it is. And it's going to be some of it, and I want you to hear the final version on YouTube. Negative emotions cradle me above the fire. My birth mother, a drug addict and a liar. She could never hold a job, she always got fired. I'm the worst out of all my brothers. Because of my birth mother, I have disorders. And so on and so on. Enjoy.